Great. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. It is 7:02, and I would like to call this meeting to order. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded traditional territory of the Coast-Shamsian Smalleq speaking people. And I would also like to share that my commitment to reconciliation is continuing to educate myself about this incredible land and incredible people in the culture of this place that I'm so fortunate to live. And I would like to ask for a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
Last.
Thank you. Seconded, Trustee Horn. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, moved. And now I will pass this on to James Latinoff for a new physical geography course presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for having us. We're very happy to see you. I mean, it's too bad we're not in person, but it's very nice to see every one of you. Just before we kind of get started, just want to introduce you to the rest of our team and presenters today. So beside me here, we have Vanya Ling, who many of you are familiar with. She is born and raised in Prince Rupert.
Born and raised in Prince Rupert, and happy to be back and teaching at Charles Hayes.
Yeah, and she is she's a wonderful science teacher here at Charles Hayes. And also behind me here, we have Hayden Wilson is in our class, and we have Logan Phillips, who is also in our class. And they're going to come in, or they're going to give you guys a little bit of insight from their perspective. Yeah. So can I share my screen?
I hope so.
Yeah, we'll try. Okay, here we go. Share screen, PowerPoint. Share. Can you guys see that?
You bet.
You want to go slideshow? Oh.
Yeah, there we go.
And then from current slide.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So the name of our sort of cohort / class that we've sort of created here is called, sorry, I have to come into this. I've been saying sort of a lot in talks, so I'm going to try and stop that this one. So please forgive me when I do it. So our class is called Geography 12 and Specialized Science 12 Fisheries. What we did was we made an amalgamation of these two classes because of the fact that we have the schedule that we have at Charles Hayes this year. We're able to make that sort of connection. Oh, there it is. In the morning, we do specialized science with Vanya, and in the afternoon, we do Geography 12 with myself. But because of our schedule, we're able to collaborate on many of the lessons. So there's a lot of blending, and we've also done units together, and we'll continue to do units together. The first one and the last one we're gonna kind of do together. These are both government courses, so we didn't have to write special curricula for it. However, we've looked at the skill or the core competencies in the class, and we've tried to localize the course as much as possible. So looking at local content and specifically and especially trying to connect with local professionals in the field of fisheries or geography-based careers here in Prince Rupert. So this is just a little description, and I won't read too much of it for you because I think we've had it in previous meetings before, but just to kind of give you sort of the origins of where the idea to make this sort of amalgamation or this cohort happen. We had a meeting last year actually with some, actually the department head at the time, it was Sarah Johnson, which was the science department head, myself, counselor, and two members from the Kitkatla Nation Stewardship Society. And we kind of talked and looked for ways that we can work together. And the question that was asked is, well, there's two things. One is, we're trying to look for ways to almost like to push people more into the science career-based kind of path. And also, another question that came from Bruce Watkinson from Kitkatla Stewardship was, well, there's not that many local people that are going into into the stewardship-based kind of fisheries or geography careers here. So how can we present information and careers to our local students here so they would maybe either come back after university or college or stay here and work in that field. And so, yeah, another part of our class too is that we want to get out in the land as much as possible. We want to be on the territory, to learn about the territory, and to learn about our local environment as well. And so we've done things like just go basically for walks and invite people who have a bit of a stake in fisheries or whatever it may be. This day, as you can see, we unretired a teacher, Mr. Hikita, to come back and give us a little bit of insight about his hobby fishing. And then we'd walk the Rushbrook Trail and then just kind of look for geographical phenomena that we can kind of notice. Another trip we did was on Butsy Rapids, and this one we looked for plants and animals. And
So for this field trip, the students and we were looking at the different invertebrate species, different fauna, and so the idea was for them to really take a look and enjoy this trail, and then create a field guide for others, like local people in the community, and point out what are some interesting things to look for and learn a bit of information. And so we also tried to tie in the Tsimshian language, and so many of our students helped us in terms of like what's the name for a clam, and my pronunciation is terrible, but they're really good at correcting myself.
Yeah, so we have some of the.
So yes, this is an example of one of the slides for the field guides that they created. So they identified the Nuttall's cockle or basket cockle, and the Latin name is underneath, and then the Tsimshian word. Yeah. Yeah. We need Eddie. Yeah.
And speaking of Eddie, he actually showed us. So we had an opportunity. This is part of some of the collaborations that we'll kind of talk about a little bit later on in the slides. But so the Indigenous Education Department of Wapasagigat, they brought out an entire bucket of clams that had been harvested. And Eddie, a member of our class, showed us how to shuck the clams. And I didn't at the time, and I feel like I wussed out a little bit, but Miss Ling tried a live raw clam
that I just shucked.
Yeah.
I did it. He said I was fierce. You have to do it. And so I gave in and I ate it and I survived.
And then, one of our huge highlights was last week. Was it last week or the week before? We went to the Skeena to join Mr. Spencer on the Oolican Run. And we also, with some of his sort of equipment that he brought and the techniques that he taught us, a good majority of our students were able to get in the water and do some fishing, as well as the teachers. One teacher caught a few Oolicans and was able to bring them back, and another teacher fell in the river and filled up his chest weight. And I won't tell you who was who.
I might have put a
know.
picture.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there will be a picture here. So there's a couple more pictures from the Oolican Run. And then, I'll let you people.
Oh,
Morse
yeah,
Creek as well.
and we went to Morse Creek, and to do a habitat survey. So having the students take a look at the habitat and see for themselves if this creek was still a good environment for Chinook and coho, like they had originally planned, because there is a salmon ladder in the area, and so they did a habitat survey and came to their conclusions about whether or not this was suitable still.
And this is some examples of the assignments that they were completing after, specifically after the Ulican Run. So it's kind of like a news story. More examples. And then we've also had people come into the classroom and zoom in, whatever they were sort of comfortable with at the time. And these pictures here are for Brandy Larange, is that her? Yeah, and she was from the Oldfield hatchery, and she came in and we did some dissections of salmon. And then, so this is obviously ongoing. We're kind of halfway through the class, but some of the collaborations we've been working with so far and we like to kind of highlight those people because they've been really awesome to work with. But yeah, we worked with City of Prince Rupert, Rhiannon Brooks, who's a geographical global information systems coordinator, and so she's sort of helping us set up our accumulating project, which will involve the geography part and the learning about the species part that we've covered in class by using a story map. We're working with the North Coast Ecology Center, or Caitlin Birdsall, and she's proposing to us that we do a microplastics pilot project where we count. We'll be responsible. Some of our students will be responsible to count some of the debris that's in those baskets. We've worked with Bruce Watkinson from Kikatla Stewardship, and we continue to work with them and get advice from him and all that stuff. And we were very lucky to have from DFO Jessica Harishan and Dylan Burke, especially because we're learning about crabs now, and he kind of told us about. So Dylan and Jessica are married, and they used to live in town, but now they don't. But they zoomed in for us, which was really nice. And then Eco Trust has done some awesome work with us, and especially this week when they've come in and do some soft shell crab analysis. And then, of course, give credit where credit is due to Wapsigigat. They've been with us on many collaborations and will continue to be. And we thank them a lot, especially for the Ulican Rum and all the equipment they provided. Now, with that, to hear from our students, and we're very fortunate to have them join us today. You want to start, or do you want to start?
I can start.
Okay, and you can take your mask off.
Yeah, going to the Hooligan Run is like, it was really cool, just stuff I've never seen before. Like, I've never been to a Hooligan Run before. And, like, meeting all the elders and stuff, and showing us like how it's done and you know what they do. Like, I fish myself, and like a lot of the things I learned in this class I've never learned before. Like outside of it, it's pretty cool. Definitely a lot of new things. But I definitely learned a lot more in this class than I did in like in normal science. Probably like a lot of wildlife, like where you live and stuff. I think I had a bit of a hooligan. I don't like it myself, but now I know that I don't like it. But
I'm gonna bring it smoke to Thanks, Hayden. Or sorry, thanks, Logan. And Hayden?
Yeah, Logan's right. I've learned more about like it's nice learning about local things and like stuff like that's in chemistry, because I think this is more important to learn about like where we're living, so we can just know more about it. Like we had the head manager from the fish hatchery come in there and like tell us about like how like they breed the salmon, like it's what's important for them. It's good to learn. And like Rhiannon Brooks from City of Prince Rupert teaching us about mapping and stuff, which is really neat. And we have like websites to learn about Rupert and like all like the details about the mountains and animals in the area and whatnot.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's awesome, guys. Yeah, that's all we have. We open up for some questions, and again, thank you so much for your time.
Trustee Horn?
I have a question for you. Thanks very much for your presentation. It's excellent. And the fact that you're working together with all these different groups on the stewardship program that you're running. I would ask the students there, Logan James, I believe, is the other one, right?
Hayden.
Hayden.
Oh, Caden, sorry. Thank you. And I'd ask you to tell us a little bit about how you found all the variety of the things that you've looked at, because as a person that just lives from what comes from the ocean, that's me, I don't, but in this case, you're going to see all the different things and the availability, what we've got to do to maintain that for future generations. And that's the whole idea of teaching you this course. And so tell us a little bit about that side of it.
Well, he shows us about like there's a lot of varieties of things that they teach us, like a lot about the waves and like how the waves work. And but you're talking about like how it would like help in the future.
That's right. How do you maintain environment so that the fish remain and all the plants and animals remain so that we can have those in the future?
We were talking about overfishing, a lot of overfishing, and like trying to keep your like limit while you're out fishing, and like don't take undersized and oversized. Like in crab right now, we're learning about all the marks that you want to like look on a crab, and like you want to measure it from tip to tip, or like from some of the edge to edge. Like you want to chuck those ones away and like keep the big ones, and just not overfish and no pollution and stuff. Like we never pollute when we're out there. We try to pick up everything we can. So
Excellent. Thank you for that.
yeah.
Trustee Meyer?
Just a couple of comments. One is that, I mean, I lived here most of my life, and you students probably know way more than I do now when it comes to wildlife and plants and everything. And I would love to get my hands on one of your guides for Butsy Trail, by the way. If anybody wants to email me that would be awesome. And my other comment was just, looking back on my PAC and DPAC days and when the new curriculum was coming in, and there was talk of these big ideas and deep diving and having it local. And this is the type of class that I envisioned in my head, is that, it's relevant, it's interesting, the students want to learn it. And I love this course. Yeah, and so thank you for coming to present, and thank you boys for coming. And I know it's got to be a little bit intimidating being asked questions. You guys are doing awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Trustee Koontz? You're muted.
Thank you. Just the community piece is big, right? I like seeing that we're gathering the community members and the people who have got the knowledge and all that to be able to bring these type of courses together. And super fortunate. I mean, if you posted that BC wide on who would want to take that course that you're currently doing with that curriculum and what you just showing through your presentation, I mean, the class would be filled up 10 times over, I'm sure, right? Because I know there's a lot of envy when it comes to where we live, and being proud of that and being able to actually do what you were doing on the Skeena River and out in the ocean and all the different areas you're covering. So super excited. Back to like Christy says, you sort of have that vision as a trustee, and it has been talked about for, at least a good decade anyways, where, there was pioneers that were trying to explain the vision that they seen, what they wanted to see in our classrooms. And it's nice to see that those areas are, now coming alive, and lots of people put a lot of hard work and time into it when it comes to the teachers and creating this curriculum and stuff like that. And then of course, at the end of the day, staff allowing those things for people to venture out and take on. So yeah, pretty proud moment for that. It was it's one of those things that you see and you're happy to see it finally coming true.
Thank you. And I would just love to say thank you for a great presentation. Thank you for coming to present to us tonight. How fun. I would think that the new curriculum kind of lets you explore and get creative as teachers, and also the way class works, where you know, 2 classes can combine and there's a full day. And then there's 10 weeks of this amazingness where you're on the land and you're learning with your hands. And again, I believe that anything's possible in partnership. And I love that you shared all of the partners in community that came to support this and are coming to support this. And also how exciting for our community partners to be able to work with students and to really, you know, give ideas and seeds of what is possible outside the classroom and beyond school. Yeah, so thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
You
much
too.
for your time, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So could I have a motion for approval of the minutes of the open board meeting held February 15th? Trustee Last.
I'll make
trustee
that
Mark,
motion. Oh, second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, thanks. And the necessity of a closed meeting and agenda. Mover trustee Meyer, seconder trustee Last, all in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, thanks. Correspondence addressed to the board, 5.11. Wishes of the board? Trustee Meyer,
Make a motion to receive and file.
seconder. Trustee Koontz, would you like to speak to that?
No.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. And then copy to the board, 5.2.1. Trustee Last,
Receive and file, please.
great, seconder. Trustee Holm. All in favor?
I have a question. I have a
Oh, yes,
question.
sorry. Go ahead.
I'd like to ask, this talks about a change that the government's made to the childcare being a transition to the Ministry of Education. And probably can't be answered at this meeting, but perhaps the staff, what effects does this have on our district? I'd like to ask that question. Is there any effect made on our district? Maybe if you didn't want to answer that now, I'd be happy with an answer at the next meeting.
Yeah, Trustee Horn, I can tell you that the ministry has just told us that they are working on migrating education and those responsible for child spaces together, and that we should expect more consultation in the next few months to go forward. Whether they'll have regional centers, they don't know. How will we as a school district access experts who can help us in the transition?
Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor to receive and file. All in favor? Great. Approved.
Aye.
Thank you. 5.2.2. Trustee Last,
Receive and file, please.
seconder.
I'll second that.
Sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. 5.2.3.
Receive and file.
Thank you. Seconder. Trustee Last, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. And 5.2.5. Wishes of the board. Trustee Horn,
Receive and file, please.
thank you.
Did we do 3 already?
We did.
Didn't do 4 yet.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. 5.2.4. Trustee Horn,
Receive and file, please.
thank you. Seconder.
I'll second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. And 5.2.5. Trustee Koontz. Receive and file. Thank you. Seconder. Trustee Sanchez. All in favor? Moved.
Aye.
Thank you. Superintendent of Schools report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and certainly thanks to Vanya Ling and the students and James Latnoff for a wonderful presentation. I too was very excited when they first told me about that they were working on that course. And now that it's actually being implemented, I think it's very exciting and great to see students talk about their learning with such enthusiasm. So thank you to the group. First, our field trips, and as you can see, there's quite a few of them, and I think you're very likely to see a lot more as the restrictions through COVID are lessened. So if there's any questions on the field trips.
I just have one, number 11, college and bowling. Is that in Terrace?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions? Great. Seeing none, pass that over to you, Mr. Samuel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for enrollment, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Sandra Pond to update us on our enrollment.
Good evening, everybody. So our enrollment for February went down, and I've got some details on that. So we went down by 26 students. 10 students actually moved out of the district. 7 graduated, so they were taken off our roster. So that's always a good news story. And 9 were removed with our 1701 count because they weren't attending. So those students will not be forgotten. We'll be working on getting them back into classes. And we had 4 new students move into town. So we had a difference of 22. So we went down from 19, I think it was 44 to 18, or 1844 to 1826 this month. Never boring.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bond. And next is calendar. Starting on page 22, you'll see a series of calendars with 1 and 2 week spring breaks, but I understand that Mr. McIntyre has news from the PRDTU on this issue.
I can just inform you that in order for the board to approve a 2-week calendar, there are adjustments required to the collective agreements. The board and the teachers union have agreed on what those changes would be. So that does allow the board to consider the 2-week calendars in these packages.
Trustee Last.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the 2-week spring break for the following 3 years, please.
Seconded, Trustee Koontz. Yeah, would you like to speak to that?
I would. I love that we can do more than 1 year. So my appreciation out to PRDTU for considering that for us. Just gives parents and staff and students a lot more, they can prepare better. They know that for the next 3 years, there's a 2-week spring break. So we're not, and for the board as well, you know, you're not having this calendar and having to approve it every year. So this is the first time in my 20-year history that we've been able to do this. So I'm very appreciative to everyone involved. So thank you.
Sorry, Trustee Horn.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to mention to the board that by having a 2-week spring break means an extended unpaid time off for certain members of our staff that do work within the schools, and to take that into mind when making a vote on this motion. Thank you.
I'm sorry, my phone's not working, Kate, but I'd like to have my hand up too, please.
Yes, please go ahead, Trustee Beal.
So most of you know over the past, like, I don't know, 10 years, I've not supported the 2-week spring break. Not just because, like, you know, people lose their wages, but many of those people are dedicated to, you know, ensuring that those kids who come to school get fed, they're on a schedule. And I've always supported the fact that, you know, when they're away from school and people always combat me with, oh, well, they're off for the whole summer. Yes, they are off for the whole summer, but they're off, you know, they're off their schedule for their spring break and they're off schedule for the summer break. And sometimes when you look at the stats, it's not good because these children come to school and they rely on us to feed them. They rely on us to support them. And then their schedules all thrown out. And then the people which is our EAs, are put under hardship because we don't pay for them. I really have a hard time supporting this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I see you, trustee Last, and I would just offer if anyone who hasn't spoken yet would like to speak. Trustee Last?
Thank you. And just adding, Janet, it's more than the EAs, it's the secretary's janitorial, which you know, but we don't want anyone to think that they are being overlooked. And while I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree, if we are committed to being a reliable, consistent source of nutrition, which that's a whole other thing, you know, we should be tasked with educating kids, and I'm not sure how we became so responsible for nutrition as well. But if we are that concerned about it, then we should be looking at the calendar in general for the whole year. You can't, it would be difficult to say, you know, we can't have a 2-week spring break because that 1 week is going to make a big that one extra week is going to make a big difference. Well, we send them off at the end of June and hope for the best till September. So, you know, I hear what you're saying, but if we are wanting to focus on being that, you know, this is where kids, you know, this may be their safe place, this may be where they're getting their nutrition, all of those things, then we shouldn't be just looking at a spring break. We should be looking at the entire calendar. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. Do we get to hear what the feedback was from our stakeholders?
The only other comment that was received had to do with the timing of the Christmas break in the second year, which it did move by a week from the calendar, as you saw in January, starts on Christmas Day. Now it was starting a week earlier before. And we did move the Pro D Day in January for the elementary and middle school from the Friday to the Monday. That was the comments that were received, and they were reflected in these updated calendars.
Thank you. So for clarity, no comment on a preference of 1 or 2 weeks.
No, I mean, like IUE does express their concern, as Trustee Horn mentioned, just that there is people impacted by it.
Right. We have a motion on the table to approve 2 weeks. We have a seconder. I will ask all in favor.
I will say I'm opposed.
You should call for opposed too, Kate.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, but I don't mean to be the last man standing. I just have different feelings, I guess.
You're fine, and you weren't the only one opposed. So thank you. Back to you, Mr. Samuel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. COVID update. COVID tests have been received by almost all schools. We're still waiting for Charles Hayes Secondary School to get their supply. Did they get them? I stand corrected. Late breaking news, they have received them. 1 box of 5 nasal swab tests went to students. The K-8 parents have been asked to pick theirs up at the school. And also there are 2 mouth rinse tests for staff members that are being handed out as well. And there are some extras, I understand, that are available for pickup at the booth building for staff who may require them. And along with that, at this time, the updated communicable disease guidelines indicate that effective the first day of spring break, students and staff are no longer required to wear masks. However, students and staff may continue to wear their masks, and the guidelines are that they must be treated with respect and support for their decision. The guidelines for hand washing, of course, our recommendations are that students and staff continue to wash their hands frequently and to complete the daily health check. And if you are not feeling well, then you should not go to school. The next update will be in mid-April, and the ministry has told us that they are working at this time on melding the very restrictive education guidelines with the public guidelines so that they are more similar in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, and next is strategic plan approval. On the next page, starting on page 28, you'll see our strategic plan in our package. And we have recently, we shared the plan and consulted with the Indigenous Education Council. And we shared the plan with our principals, and we've also done a working session with the board on it. And so tonight, we believe the document is at a place where we are seeking approval. But I do say that this is a living document and it will change. It will change as our students' priorities change. But basically, this is the first part of many documents that we'll be producing, and that is the strategic plan sets out our priorities, and then the operational plan, which we will start working on, is to give greater detail to our staff on how are we going to accomplish our goals.
Thank you. I see trustee Last, but I did note Peoples is spelt incorrectly on page 2.
Yeah.
And trustee Last,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the strategic plan, please.
wonderful. Seconder, trustee Meyer. Would you like to speak to that motion?
Yes, please. So we've heard about the strategic plan, we've been informed, and it's so nice to see it actually in living color. It's beautiful. So kudos and thanks and appreciation and great job to all those involved. Yeah, it took us time, but as good things do, you put lots of thought into it and just very well done. Thank you.
Trustee Horn?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to also thank the staff for the work they've done on this. It's very impressive. It comes across very strong, especially because of the way you put the pictures in. I'd also like to thank you for acknowledging the people that put together some of these pictures and the students as well that you wrote in there. So thank you very much for the work you've done in this respect.
I would like to echo that as well. I got to be a small part of this, and it was very exciting and fun. I love strategic planning, and it's so lovely to see this complete. And I'm so excited to see how all of the pieces now fit into this and how this is a support for our whole district. So thank you for the mass amount of work that I know this is on top of all of your other daily and beyond daily jobs that you have to do. So thank you. And there is a motion on the table to approve. All in favor? Wonderful. So moved. Thank you.
And we will, thank you, Madam Chair and trustees. We will correct the errors. There were a few more acknowledgements for visuals and graphics that we will be including, and we'll correct the page 2 error. Thank you. Upcoming projects, learning and other. So for learning, we did talk about equity as our priority, and today I was meeting with the administrators, principals and vice principals. We're reviewing our equity plans for going forward and the work that we have to do to make sure that the strategic plans that the board has just passed, that strategic plan is reflected in the individual school growth plans so that they dovetail in. And as I was talking about the other documents, we will be working as well on the operational plan, financial plan, and human resources plan, so that the documents all reflect each other. Couple of other things for you. Anti-racism in service on Tuesday, March 8th, we had approximately 40 staff gather in a COVID supervised way to talk about racism with Joe Crona. Joe Crona is a very popular Tsimshian speaker. She worked for the ministry for many years, and I believe she worked with Finesse. She's worked on curriculum, developed a lot of curriculum, and Joe challenged us. She encouraged us as a staff to work together to check our biases and to look at the idea of privilege and how that might affect decisions that we make. She also encouraged us to build high expectations for our students and in our relationships with our students, and to continue working on our equity scans. Judging by the comments that I received, staff were very appreciative of the event. It was hoped that we can continue to offer this. This was the second year that we offered this, and we're hoping to expand it as the COVID restrictions are lessened. Perhaps we can make this a much bigger event and be more inclusive in the community with our community groups and partners who work with us in and outside of our schools. And that, Madam Chair, is my report.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel. On to Secretary Treasurer report.
All right, starting on page 39 of the package is the financial reports for the month of February. That is comparing now to the amended budget that you approved last month. And any questions you may have on those.
Oh, Trustee Meyer?
I just wanted to ask in the public meeting is that I just want to make sure that we are on track as per our amended budget, and that right now with the numbers that we're showing, we're not foreseeing that we are weighing too far from the amended budget.
No, I'm quite comfortable. I mean, you kind of, your simple guideline is should you have 40% left for 4 months, but you do have a number of expenses that are done over 12 months where you only need 33% left. And so it does look like we're tracking well right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Page 41 is the operations department report. And any questions you have on that?
Not seeing any.
The following page is the information technology department report. And again, if you have any questions on that.
Not seeing any.
All right, and my final item is approval of the purchase of unit ventilators. So the way these projects have gone, these are for Charles Hayes and for Roosevelt. The amount of money that was available this year was to buy the unit ventilators, and we're going out for tender shortly for contracts to install the unit ventilators, hopefully this summer. The contract, there's one for $215,000, and that's for 31 unit ventilators at Charles Hayes. The other one is $158,500. That's for 24 unit ventilators at Roosevelt, to a company called Engineered Air. And the process was that the engineers went out and surveyed and evaluated a number of different suppliers, and these was the supplier that had the best cost and the best turnaround time to have it delivered. And I would need a motion from the board to approve that, please.
Trustee Koontz? You're muted.
I will make that motion to approve.
Seconded Trustee Horn.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak to that motion?
Nope, Cam explained himself, and I think that's all, that's good for now.
I have a question. Could you tell me what the total amount is and from what budget that will come?
Okay, so, sorry, there's 215,000 is one contract, 158,500 is the other. And that's all capital money that was in the capital bylaw that was approved coming through the school enhancement program.
Wonderful, thank you. We have a motion on the table. Seconder, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
That would conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports. Trustee Beal, Finance and Building.
Sorry, Kate, I'm having issues with this thing up here. I guess Cam will speak about the financial statement. There's nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. Framework for Enhanced Student Learning. I'll speak to that. We're meeting this Thursday and we'll have something to report out at our next board meeting. Trustee Meyer, Provincial Council.
Yep, just on page 43 of the agenda package, we submitted a motion for our AGM last meeting, and the legislative committee for BCSTA came back and just needed to tweak some wording. And so that final the final wording for our motion is essentially that BCSTA requests the Ministry of Education to work with BCSTA and First Nations Education Steering Committee to explore means by which Indigenous representation can form a part of each Board of Education. So that's the final warning, or the final wording. And hopefully we get that passed in April at our provincial council meeting that I heard everybody is going to.
Thank you. Trustee Last.
Hi. I had spoken out about this when it first came to the board table. And after that, someone who is not part of the district any longer, but someone whose knowledge and advice I listen to, and that's not always the case. He had said that to keep in mind that, in a lot of cases, the province ends, south of Prince George, and they don't really take into consideration, because when I think, the Indigenous work that's been done in the district for decades has been probably, well, we are leaders in the province. So I'm thinking, okay, this really doesn't seem like it pertains to us. And because we have, when I was elected, Larry McKay was on the board. So we have had Indigenous representation. And as I had said the last time I spoke, we must be careful that because people may not look outwardly that they are Indigenous, we can't assume that there isn't Indigenous representation on the board, because there is. And that could be the case for many boards. So, even the means by which Indigenous representation can form part of each board, well, we don't know that it isn't. So is can really the word, or would it be to increase, obviously at the AGM, they all want to, I'll be interested to hear how many changes to the motion there will be. I'm sure lots. But yeah, so I support the idea, but it makes me feel like there hasn't been, and there has. And a lot of districts have very involved Indigenous people on board. So I don't want to overlook that, there's been committed people all along. So thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Last. And I would love to share that of all the AGMs that this motion could come to, this is a beautiful AGM to come to because of what the learning connected to this is. And I would also share that this is a motion for the province. And Trustee Meyer and I spoke about this, and I do think that we are very fortunate for where we live because of our Indigenous Education Committee, because of our community, because of who comes. And partners with us. We're very, very fortunate. And I don't know that that children across our province have that same opportunity to learn their culture, to have representation of people of the land involved in their district. And so to just to have that language there as well when we talk about this motion, I think is very important.
And that was what my friend had said to me. He said, you have to remember that in places like Vancouver and Surrey, the influence of Indigenous people and culture may be non-existent. And I hadn't considered any of that. I just thought, well, wait a minute, you know, my frame of reference, terms of reference is this. So I just, well, everybody's like this. No, Tina, not everybody is. So it was good. It was a good expanding of my own knowledge. So thanks.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing, Trustee Meyer. Indigenous Education Council, I can report on that. Mr. Samuel did steal my thunder, but I would love to share that he did share the draft of the strategic plan that was shared. We spoke about truth and reconciliation and equity. We did speak about the anti-racism gathering that would be taking place on March 8th, and I was fortunate enough to be able to attend that with Joe Trona, and I absolutely loved the conversation and the challenges and the way that Joe speaks and how she just lifts up and empowers, and really the power of more, the power of setting expectations for our kids. Also, the draft annual growth report was shared, and every year so much work goes into this by our Indigenous Education Committee, and I do think a few key players do a lot of work in making this a very fulsome report for our district, full of pictures and data and stories and projects and sharing. And it is currently in draft, and when that does become no longer in draft, that is available to the public. Thank you. And then Policy Committee, Trustee Horn, I believe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like, first of all, to make a motion to send for review policies 2330, service awards policy, and the 5120 naming policy.
Trustee Last?
I'm just seconding his motion.
Wonderful, thanks. And I would just like to note on 233, it says and plaque instead of a plaque. Just a little note in writing. Thanks. So we have a motion on the table. All in favor? Great, approved. Thank you, Trustee Horn.
I'd like to make a motion to approve policies 6260, conflict of interest policy, and 6270, whistleblower protection policy.
Seconded, Trustee Last. All in favor? Approved. Thank you.
And other business maybe would be best for Cam to talk about.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to respond to that. So a request has been made to the committee a few months back in terms of reviewing the timelines and how much time is provided for partner groups to respond in the review of the policies. That's what's laid out in our regulation. So it's set out at 2 weeks, and it's because currently your board weeks are typically 4 weeks apart. So then after the board meeting the next day, we can send them out to partner groups. They have 2 weeks to respond. And then we have about a week if there's any other work that needs to be done before we bring it back to the policy committee. And then the following week, it would come back to the board. And so that's why it has been set at 2 weeks. If you wanted to allow partner groups to have longer than 2 weeks, that's also fine, but you would not get that same policy back until probably 2 board meetings later in order for all that time to work. So I just sort of explained what's there and why the rationale for 2 weeks was set up.
Trustee Horn?
Thank you, Chair. I've sat on the policy committee for many years now, and I've not come across another time when this issue has come forward. It's always been, all of the stakeholders that we send these out to have acted in a timely manner. They all know the rules, and I believe that our current rules work best for the situation that we're in right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure, is there wishes of the board on this? Is this information sharing?
Yeah.
Trustee Last?
When it was the policy boys, Bart and James, I mean, our policy book had never been so well looked after. And the guys did an amazing job, and whatever they were doing, there wasn't a problem. They never uttered any, there was never any fuss made about timelines and whatnot. So this clearly isn't broken. And yeah, it's been in great hands. So I'd say stick with what we're doing.
Thank you. And again, yes, Trustee Meyer?
I'm just going to make one comment too, and I think this was in regards to DPAC. And I think if next year, if it was just stated to DPAC when the policies come out for review, then they can perhaps put their meeting in that 2-week block that we have them out. And then that way we can say, hey, this is when we release it. This is, you know, and then maybe they can then do their meetings in that time frame. Thanks.
Thank you. Hearing nothing further on that. 8.6 District Technology Steering Committee, Trustee Kuntz.
Madam Chair, thank you. I will speak for Trustee Kuntz, who didn't attend the meeting, but his regrets to the meeting, he wasn't able to attend.
Wonderful, thank you.
There's minutes in the report on page 50. And I'd like to say a couple of things. I was super impressed with the committee's work that they were doing in the Joint Tech Steering Committee. They've been working so hard on making it safe for our students to use the internet and to teach them the ways of using the internet. I was really impressed with what they did. And especially with Sandy and Jet, who attended that digital threat assessment course. And they'd done it on the same day, I believe. But lots of useful information came out of that as well. So super big thanks to those guys for the hard work you've been doing.
Any questions? Sound wonderful, thank you. Old business,
There's none.
new business.
You have a survey in front of you. If you're comfortable, I will kind of record your answers to this and submit it on behalf of the board once you've gone through it. BCS Jason will be gathering information from boards with respect to climate issues. So the first question, in the past year, has the board had any discussion related to Clean BC goals, carbon neutral program, or climate change?
Trustee Last?
Only once, whenever you bring the carbon neutral thing to us to approve, but otherwise we haven't talked about it.
So I would ask, would the board like to know, not, where would the board like their answer on that of the 4?
No, not yet, but we plan to do so.
And I would say we have touched on the topic.
Touched, but that would be the bare minimum.
I would also ask how the board would like to go about filling out this survey. Do we look for a vote? Do we want to go with number 2 or number 3?
Number 3, we have touched on it, but just a touch.
All right. So our
I'd say number 3.
So number 3 is no, not yet, but we plan to do so.
Number
All right.
2.
I think the 3s have it, James.
Okay.
Next question. Does your board have climate action goals, energy conservation goals, environmental stewardship goals, or curricular focus on climate change initiatives as part of your strategic plan, framework for enhanced student learning, or policy? Yes or no?
Yes.
I would say no, but
I would
go
say,
with the-
actually, I would say no, and I think Tina's
I'd
gonna
say
say
no.
no. I think we're trying to move in that direction, but we're not there. We're not even close to being there. Sorry. I apologize, but I'm sorry. And I think Tina and I know, because we've been there long enough, that we know that we're not there, right, Tina?
Well, I think it would be misleading to say we've done lots on it or even touched on it a little bit more than a touch, James. Because we haven't. I mean,
But this is goals, right? And so remember that.
absolutely. Yes,
Yep.
it's our goal to do it, but have we? No.
And we
this
just,
says, does your board have climate action goals? I have never heard this board speak of action climate goals.
No. So the answer there would be no.
no, yeah, no.
But our staff does work around this area all the time. So, and they
And-
tell us about it, right?
Just the carbon neutral.
Yep.
Only because we're directed to.
But it asks if it's a part of our strategic plan that we just approved and it's nowhere in there.
Or policy or framework for enhanced student learning.
So those three things it's not a part of. So the answer would have to be no.
It would have to be.
Yes. Number 5, does your district have any strategies, best practices in place for lowering greenhouse gas emissions?
That I'd say yes.
I would
Yep.
turn and I would ask staff.
Yeah, so that's what you generally see in the carbon neutral action report is we continue to apply for and be successful in getting energy conservation projects from capital funds. And we've made quite significant changes over the last number of years through that money.
Yes, the board has made numerous things when it comes to that to continually move forward in our schools with boilers, with lighting, with lots of different things, right? So we constantly every year are almost in general choosing something in a category and acting on it, right, towards that.
Wonderful. And so a yes for number 5. And then number 6, do you have any resources that you could share related to the goals of Clean BC that the climate change work group can use? I would pass this back to staff as well.
I don't think we had anything that would be sort of leading or helpful in that regard.
And is the board comfortable with that answer?
I am.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Is the question 7, eh?
Please provide district contacts that the BCSTA Climate Change Work Group can follow up with for further details.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Information items are, our annual budget consultation meeting of March 17th. I would like to share that I don't think I can ask for a motion, but to have this postponed. So I cannot make this motion, correct?
Motion to
Trustee Lass?
postpone.
Thank
I'll do
you.
it for you.
Seconder? Trustee Meyer?
I just asked, but do you want to postpone it to a specific date? Or do you want us to announce a date at a later time?
You made the motion, Trustee Last.
I would say we will leave the date in your very capable hands of picking a date because we wouldn't have that calendar in front of us. So you can advise us of the best suitable date.
And could I don't know, can I add to that? Perhaps we come up with a date after we do another working session.
Sure.
Great. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Approved. Thank you. 11.2 spring break is March 21st to April 1st. Good Friday is April 15th. Easter Monday, April 18th. Board meeting is April 19th and our BCSTA AGM is April 21st to the 24th. And as was shared, everybody's going.
Change in plans, Kate.
Oh, All right.
I'm not attending.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that, Tina.
I know, me too. It was a lofty goal, but no.
And now we open the floor for a 10-minute question and answer period. Mr. Burrow.
Good evening. I get two questions. One is, will there be will there be lots of advertisement about when the date is decided for the next ABC meeting? Because right now, you have to search a fair bit on the website in order to find ABC dates and to how to get the link. It's not, it does, well, I looked a fair bit yesterday and I couldn't, look, I knew just emailed Tammy at the end of the day, but I could not find how to access that meeting tomorrow, well, for Thursday, which is not happening now, but so just wondering if it will be well advertised when the date is decided. Thanks.
Thank you for that feedback, Mr. Burrow. I would pass that to head office and I can commit as well to sharing wherever I share. And I would pass that to head office as well.
Yeah, so it's just, we will typically send it to the normal partner groups. We do try and get it on the website, and it may have been higher up and then fell further down the website after some time, but it'll be quite current when it does go up, and hopefully it stays up near the top of the website.
Thank you. And the point I wanted to, just to make it clear that for the calendar, that the dates for Prudy's that, and I think Cam touched on it a bit, but the dates for Prudy are chosen by schools, and therefore, and the district Prudy committee has submitted dates for the Prudy for this year, which involve that change from January to 20th. So basically, when we voted on the letter of understanding today for the 3 years calendar, it is very clear that we're not approving the Prudy dates that are on this calendar. We're just approving the concept of 2 weeks spring break, and that year after year, the Prudy dates will be decided as per our process. I just want to make sure that that was clear. It is more than a consultation for the dates. The dates as per collective agreement, school decides on Prudy dates. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And I was not aware of that. And I would just make sure that that's noted with staff and that this meeting has been recorded.
Thanks. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. The floor is open for questions. Not seeing any. Could I have a motion for adjournment? Trustee Last, Trustee Kuntz, all in favor?
In favor.
Oh, approved. Thank you, everyone. Happy March break to those of you that get that.
Night, Kate. Night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Hey.